I want to continue my conversation on retirement. That is a big subject. It is for me because I've done a lot in my retirement. And so I want to share that with you to let you know that retirement is not a dead end. Retirement is not a boring time. It's a time really of adventure. So let me tell you about one adventure I had. Well, when I was 75, I decided to get some work. And, I looked around, I thought, oh, what can I do? But I had one desire in my life, sort of a fun thing, I thought, and I wonder, can I do that? I was 75, and I wanted to learn and to make a living for a while driving big tractor trailers. Those, well, I think they call them 18-wheelers or something like that, those things you see on the highway that sometimes you curse, you know, that I wanted to learn to do the tractor trailers. So I went to a company called England, and I'd seen it around many times, and I'd seen it advertised that they wanted drivers. So I went to England, and I told them what I wanted to do. I said, I would love to be able to drive tractor trailers for you. And they said, fine, but you have to go to school first for that, and then you'll have a job with us. So that's what I did. It was $1,000 I had to pay for it, $1,000 to go to school. At that time, I was in Los Angeles, so I went to school there. What they did is put us up in a hotel, the students, two people to a room, and we would stay there while going to school. And nearby was a large area where they would teach me how to drive. Well, it was a lot of fun. First we had to go to school to learn the many rules and regulations and things that you need to know to be a driver, such as how to deal with hazardous materials, what truck drivers need to look for, how to keep a log. All those things are sort of like, paperwork type of stuff. So I went to class and then went to an area where they had trucks, big tractor trailers, and I began to learn how to drive. And believe me, I was very nervous about it, but you had to learn how to shift gears. You had to learn how to turn left, turn right, because it's not like when you drive a car, you have to go way out before you make a turn, because otherwise you'll bump into people next to you. And they have to learn to park. You have to learn to park, put your truck in those areas where they have loading docks. Sometimes it's pretty difficult to park between two other trailers, and you have to learn how to park at a curb. And that was probably the most difficult thing to do, but I learned all those things. And after I had completed my training, then I had to work with a trainer in a truck. Actually, I would share driving with this driver, and he would teach me what I need to do, or at least allow me to drive, and then he would correct me, maybe sometimes rescue me from doing something foolish and crazy. and there was two drivers, and then the trucks are bunk beds. So the way it worked is that you drove 10 hours. Okay, 10 hours, you think is a lot. It is a lot. You know, there's quite a bit of attention, you know, driving this big truck and not running into people. The thing that was the worst thing about driving was people run past you and then pull in front of you. And, you know, you can't stop one of those trucks. It takes a football length to stop a truck that when you're going at 70 miles an hour. And so I was doing that. And well, I did it. I mean, there was a driver because the drivers like doing this because they get extra income. So he wanted to have me work with me uh, driving across country from Los Angeles, New York. I think it's approximately 5 days to drive because when you drive, you don't stop. It's 24 hours a day. Now you say that's 10 hours each for a driver. That's 20 hours. How about the other 4 hours? That other 4 hours is where you pull in, you refuel your truck, you get a meal, take a shower, and things like that. That you do on the road when you are driving. And anyhow, I guess I should have taken this job because that's a long trip for. In fact, the driver on the return trip realized I was so inexperienced that he decided to get me off the truck and get another driver in, probably another student, maybe with more experience. And I enjoyed doing that. I really thought to myself that what I was going to do was going to do this for a year. I thought, oh, I'll do it for a year. I'll make some extra money. I would learn how to drive trucks. I would drive the trucks. I would not, you know, rent an apartment or a house. I would live in a truck, which a lot of truck drivers do. They live in their trucks. They're quite comfortable, and some of them have stoves and things like that for them to be able to prepare meals. And many of the drivers between trips would live in their truck. So once I finished my trade, this experience, uh, I went to England's headquarters. That was in Salt Lake City, Utah. I didn't realize that Utah was such a hot place, but it was. And they have a big facility there. Uh, they have an area of bunk beds that you can stay in, which I didn't have a truck to stay in, of course. You could stay in those bunk beds, you know, you can sleep there. They have a restaurant. It's a pretty big facility. Until your next trip, you know, you usually are called out for a trip, somebody requests you or something like that. I forget exactly how it worked. So I decided after that long trip across country, and it was really very tiring, that I requested that I take shorter trips. So I was then handed over to a driver that drove locally, and mostly in Utah, uh, to facilities there. And it was a woman. I was surprised to have a woman to be one of my teachers, but she was a nice woman. She was from Utah, and sometimes we'd go on a trip and we'd go to her house or her parents' house, and we would park there, and there we would stay. So she took me to these short trips, and I learned a lot more. You know, it was a lot easier to spend one day, driving somewhere, and, maybe a whole trip there and back would be one day. And that was a little bit better for me. Sometimes when we make a trip, uh, often probably if you've ever gone to casinos, you see these trucks parked out on the parking lot. Well, that's what we did. We parked in the parking lot. We were going to stay there until the next trip, I think the next day or a day or so after that. So I stayed in the truck and they let the motor run, air conditioning running and one thing, and she went inside and played the penny slots in the casino. I guess, penny is not much. How much money can you lose or how much money can you win uh, with using pennies? But that was a way to pass the time. I don't think she slept that night. A lot of the drivers spend long hours with very little sleep. And so I did that for a while, but it became too hard for me. I'm sorry to say, I had to give it up. I finally quit and decided I was going to do something else. But it was a lot of fun. It's an adventure. I mean, I didn't have to work. I had an income, but you got to do something with your time. You're healthy. You're able to do anything you want to. So that's one possibility that you can have, in retirement. You wouldn't think at 75 you're going to drive trucks or that they would even let you drive. I think in some states, when you get 75, they take away your license. But that's not true in California or Utah. Uh, so I quit and was ready for the next adventure.